The city of Lumeris shone under the light of two suns. Its tall towers curved like silver spears toward the bright sky, and its wide streets were filled with the people of the Tsarine Empire. They were taller than humans, with skin that reflected the sunlight like polished metal and eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. Among them, Queen Ariala ruled with calm strength. Yet beneath her steady rule, a shadow had lived in her heart for many years. Her only daughter, the young Princess Sima, had been taken by raiders when she was still a child. The palace guards had chased the raiders' ships across many sectors, but the trail had gone cold. Years passed, and the queen's search became a quiet grief that she carried alone. She continued her duties, but in the private chambers of the palace, her gaze often lingered on the empty gardens where her daughter once played. That day, the capital was busy as usual when a signal came from the main dockyard. A human cargo ship had requested landing clearance. Humans were not rare visitors, but they were not trusted by all. The Tsarines saw them as brave explorers, but also as unpredictable wanderers who followed no empire's laws but their own. Still, the dock commander allowed the landing. The ship descended through the shimmering shields of the city. It was small, its metal hull scratched by years of travel. The ramp lowered, and a man stepped out. He wore a worn flight jacket and carried no weapon in sight. His hair was dark, and his eyes carried the look of someone who had seen many dangers, but still moved with quiet confidence. His name was Daniel. Behind him, slowly, stepped a girl. She looked no older than 10 human years, though among the Tsarine she would be considered younger still. Her skin was silver like the people of the city, but she wore simple human-made clothes. That seemed a size too big. Her eyes moved quickly, taking in the towers and streets as if they were half-forgotten memories. Around her neck hung a small pendant of gold with a strange design, a circle surrounding a rising star. The dock guards noticed the pendant first. One of them, an older soldier named Rin, stepped forward and asked where the girl had come from. Daniel's voice was steady as he explained. "I found her in an asteroid station far from here. She was living under the control of scavengers. They kept her in a small room, away from anyone. I traded for supplies there, but when I learned about her, I could not leave her behind. I brought her with me." The guards exchanged looks. Tsarine. Children were almost never seen outside their home worlds. For one to be in the hands of scavengers was unthinkable. Rin asked the girl her name. She hesitated, glancing at Daniel before answering softly. "Sima." The sound of that name spread through the guards like a spark through dry grass. Rin's eyes widened. Every soldier in the capital knew the name of the queen's lost daughter. Without delay, a messenger was sent to the palace. Within the hour, Daniel and the girl were brought through the gates of the royal hall. The palace guards stood in rows, their armor polished and their expressions unreadable. The great doors opened to reveal Queen Ariala seated on her throne, her silver crown catching the light from the high windows. She rose when she saw the child. Her steps slowed as she came closer. Daniel felt the tension in the air as the queen's eyes searched the girl's face. The pendant around the girl's neck glinted in the sunlight. Ariala reached out and touched it gently. She recognized it at once. It was the royal crest, given only to members of the ruling family. She had given it to her daughter when the child was just a baby. "What is your name?" the queen asked, in a voice both soft and sharp. "Sima," the girl said again, her voice small. For a long moment, there was silence in the hall. The queen's gaze softened, but her mind worked quickly. Many years had passed. This could be an impostor. Yet the shape of the child's eyes, the curve of her cheek, they were like looking into the past. "How did you find her?" Ariala asked Daniel. Daniel explained again how he had come to the asteroid station. He described the scavengers, how they kept her hidden, how they avoided all questions about her origin. He had noticed she was different from the station's other workers. She spoke little, and her eyes seemed to carry memories she could not fully remember. "I am no warrior," Daniel said, "but I could not leave her there. The station was poorly guarded that day. I helped her onto my ship and left before they could stop us. I brought her here because I thought someone would know her." The Queen listened closely. Her court advisors, however, whispered among themselves. Some doubted the story. Others feared this could be a trap, a way to enter the palace with false claims. One of the older advisors stepped forward. "Your Majesty, if this truly is the lost princess, the memory crystals can confirm it. If not, we must act with care. The safety of the throne comes first." Ariala nodded. She looked down at the girl. "Do you remember this place?" Sima frowned. "I remember a garden, and light on the water, and someone singing to me." The Queen's lips parted, for she remembered singing to her daughter by the glowing fountains of the eastern gardens. But she gave no answer yet. She ordered the royal healers to take the child to the crystal chamber the next day. For now, Daniel was to remain in the palace as a guest under guard. As they were led away, Daniel glanced back at the Queen. He saw in her eyes something deeper than caution. It was hope. A hope that had been buried for years but was now struggling to rise again. In the quiet of her private room, Queen Ariala held the pendant after Sima had been taken to rest. The gold was worn, but the engraving was unchanged. She whispered a promise to herself. If this child was truly her daughter, no power in the galaxy would take her away again. Outside, the city of Lumeras went on with its bright life, unaware that something far greater than trade or politics had just arrived at its heart. The fate of the Empire, and perhaps the bond between two distant species, had begun to change with the arrival of a single human and a lost princess. The next morning, the palace was quieter than usual. Even the guards at the gate seemed more alert, as if they knew something important was about to happen. In the highest tower, the memory crystal chamber waited. It was an ancient room built long before the current palace existed, its walls made from smooth black stone that absorbed sound. At the center stood a large crystal shaped like a tear. It glowed with a soft blue light that pulsed slowly, as if alive. The Czarine believed the crystals could touch the mind and bring forth memories from deep within, even those buried by fear or time. Queen Ariala entered the chamber with measured steps. Behind her came Sima, walking beside Daniel. The girl looked around the room with wide eyes. She seemed both curious and uneasy. Daniel gave her a small nod of reassurance. Two royal healers, dressed in long white robes, approached. One of them, a tall Czarine woman named Velen, spoke gently. "Princess, if you will place your hands on the crystal, it will show us what you remember from your earliest days. It may feel strange, but it will not harm you." Sima hesitated. She looked at the Queen, then at Daniel. Ariala's expression softened. "I am here," she said quietly. "No one will hurt you." The girl stepped forward. Her small hands touched the cool surface of the crystal. At first, nothing happened. Then the blue light grew brighter, filling the chamber. A low hum echoed through the walls, and shapes began to form inside the crystal like smoke turning into pictures. The first image was of a garden, a vast space filled with glowing flowers and fountains that shone in the sunlight. A woman with silver skin knelt beside a cradle, smiling. She was younger, but her face was unmistakable. It was Queen Ariala, holding a small child and singing. The song was soft and slow, though no one in the chamber could hear the words. The Queen's hands clenched at her sides. Her eyes glistened, but she kept her composure. The scene shifted. The garden turned dark. Alarms blazed in the distance. Tall, armored raiders burst into the scene, their weapons flashing. One of them snatched the child from the cradle. Ariala's younger self fought to reach her, but she was held back by guards as the raiders vanished into the night sky. Gasps filled the chamber, but the vision was not over. Now the scene showed the inside of a cramped metal room. The child, still very young, sat in a corner. Two rough-looking figures argued in a language most in the room did not understand. Then another figure entered, a human man, older, with streaks of gray in his hair. He looked at the child and then at the raiders. After a moment, he handed them a small case of credits. The raiders left, and the man crouched down to speak softly to the child. His words were muffled, but his tone was kind. The crystal dimmed. The images faded. The hum stopped. Velen turned to the queen. "Your Majesty, the memories are true. This is your daughter." Daniel felt the tension in his shoulders ease, but only for a moment. He saw the way some of the queen's advisors exchanged uneasy glances. One of them, a man named Selric, spoke sharply. "We cannot ignore what we saw. A human was there at the beginning. Why? What was his part in this?" Daniel stepped forward. "I did not know that man, but I think I can guess. My grandfather was a trader. He often dealt in dangerous regions. He believed in helping people when he could, even if it cost him. If that was him in the vision, then he must have paid the raiders to spare her life. I never knew about this. My grandfather never spoke of it." The queen's gaze locked on him. "You are saying your family has been tied to mine since the day my daughter was taken?" Daniel nodded. "It seems so. I cannot explain why he never told anyone, but I believe he acted to protect her." Seema looked up at the queen. "The man was kind. He gave me food and told me to be brave. Then one day he was gone, and others took me away again." The queen knelt before her daughter. "No one will take you away again." For a moment the chamber felt warmer, but the peace was quickly broken when Selric stepped closer. "Your Majesty, with respect, we must be cautious. The princess has been away for many years. She has no training in the ways of the court. And this human, we know little about him. What if this is part of a larger scheme?" Ariala's voice was calm, but firm. "The crystal has spoken. This is my daughter. Daniel brought her back when no one else could. Until I have reason to doubt him, he will be treated as a guest of the crown." Still, she could feel the weight of the court's suspicion. She knew politics in the empire were rarely simple. The return of her daughter would change the balance of power. Some would rejoice, but others would see it as an opportunity to advance their own plans. After the ceremony, the queen invited Daniel to walk with her in the eastern gardens. The air was fresh, and the fountains sparkled in the sunlight. "And you risked much to bring her here," she said. "I did what anyone should have done," Daniel replied. "I could not leave her with those scavengers." Ariala studied him. "You speak simply, but such risks are not taken by most. You know there are some in my court who would see you as a danger." Daniel gave a small shrug. "Then I will prove I am not. I have no interest in power here. I just wanted to see her safe." The queen's gaze softened. "If you speak the truth, then perhaps your arrival is not only fate, but the start of something more." As they spoke, Seema wandered through the gardens, touching the glowing petals and laughing quietly. The sound carried across the garden paths, and for the first time in years, Ariala allowed herself to smile. Yet in the shadows of the high walls, Selric watched with narrowed eyes. He knew the return of the princess could weaken his influence in the court. And if the human stayed in the queen's favor, his own plans might fail. Quietly, he turned away, already thinking of ways to challenge Daniel's presence. Far above the palace, the twin suns began to set, casting gold and red. Across the towers of Lumaras, the day had brought answers, but it had also stirred new questions. The truth of the past was now clear, but the future was far from certain. The queen had her daughter back, yet she sensed that the story of how Sima was found was only the beginning of a much greater journey. If you want, I can now write Part 3, The Test of Tea. The morning after the memory crystal ceremony, the capital of Lumeris was buzzing with rumors. In the markets, merchants whispered about the human who had brought back the lost princess. In the tea houses, elders argued over whether this was a blessing or a trap. Children ran through the streets pretending to be raiders and rescuers, acting out stories they barely understood. In the palace, Queen Ariala began the formal process of restoring her daughter's place in the royal family. Sima was given her own chamber, filled with warm light and soft fabrics. Royal tutors were assigned to help her remember the language, customs, and ways of the Tsarine court. The girl listened and tried to follow, but she was still shy and often glanced toward the door, as if making sure Daniel was nearby. Daniel himself had been moved to guest quarters in the West Wing. Guards stood at the entrance, but they treated him politely. He had no intention of leaving until he was certain Sima was safe. Still, he could feel the weight of watchful eyes following him everywhere. That afternoon, the queen summoned Daniel to the Hall of Stars, a grand chamber with high windows and a floor made of polished black stone. Light from the suns streamed through the glass, scattering across the floor in shifting patterns. The queen sat on her throne, with her advisors gathered in a half-circle around her. Selric, the elder advisor who had spoken against Daniel before, stood at the front. His sharp features and cold voice carried through the hall. "Your Majesty, the crystal has confirmed the girl's identity, yet the matter of the human remains. We know he claims to have rescued her, but his story rests only on his word. Should we not test his truth as well?" Ariala's gaze was calm. "And how would you suggest we do that?" Selric spread his hands. "We can use the minor crystals. They are not as powerful as the one we used for the princess, but they can show glimpses of his memories. If he speaks the truth, then all will see it. If not, we will know." Daniel stepped forward. "I have nothing to hide. If this will end the doubt, I will do it." The test was arranged quickly. A smaller crystal was brought into the hall. Daniel placed his hands on it, and a faint green light spread across its surface. Images began to appear. The first was of Daniel walking through the dusty corridors of an asteroid station. He passed rusted doors, dim lights, and the shadowed shapes of scavengers watching him closely. Then the image shifted to a small room where Sima sat in the corner. She looked thinner, her hair tangled, her eyes wary. Daniel's voice could be faintly heard in the vision. "I am getting you out of here." The scene changed again. It showed him guiding her quietly through the station, keeping to the shadows. He bribed one guard with a small packet of rare medicine. Another guard tried to stop them, but Daniel shoved him aside and kept moving until they reached his ship. The light faded and the crystal went dark. The hall was silent. Selric's frown deepened, but he said nothing. The queen spoke first. "The truth has been shown. Daniel risked himself to bring my daughter home. Let there be no more doubt about his intentions." Some advisors nodded in agreement, but others still looked uncertain. Daniel could feel their mistrust. He knew trust was not something given quickly in this place. Later that evening, Daniel walked with Sima in the palace gardens. The air smelled of flowering vines, and the sky was painted gold by the setting suns. Sima stayed close to him, her small hand holding his sleeve. "They are afraid of you," she said quietly. Daniel glanced down at her. "Maybe. They do not know me yet. Sometimes people fear what they do not understand." "But you saved me," she said. "I did, and I would again. But saving someone once does not make everyone trust you. That takes time." Sima nodded, but still looked troubled. From the shadows of a nearby walkway, a figure watched them. Velen, the healer who had overseen the crystal test. She stepped forward. Daniel. A word, if I may. Seema stayed behind, wandering toward a bed of glowing flowers while Daniel approached the healer. Be careful, Valen said quietly. The Queen trusts you, but there are others who do not. Selric is already speaking to nobles who dislike the idea of a human in the Queen's favor. If they cannot remove you openly, they may try other ways. Daniel gave a small nod. I appreciate the warning, but I am not here for politics. I just want to make sure she is safe. Velen's expression softened. Then you must stay alert. The palace is beautiful, but it has shadows of its own. That night, in the council chambers, Selric met with 2 other nobles in secret. If the Queen listens only to the human, Selric said, we will lose our voice in the court. The girl's return already changes the balance of the succession. We must act before the human becomes more than a guest. One of the nobles leaned forward. What do you suggest? Selric's eyes narrowed. We wait for the right moment. If danger comes to the Empire, we can place the blame where it will do the most damage. Unaware of the plotting, Daniel sat in his guest quarters, looking out at the city lights through the window. He thought of the journey that had brought him here and of the dangers still ahead. He had faced scavengers, storms, and empty space, but the politics of the palace might be the most dangerous challenge yet. In her own chamber, Queen Ariala stood by the balcony, watching the stars. She had her daughter back, yet the joy was mixed with worry. She had seen the doubt in the eyes of her court. She knew the return of Seema would not heal all divisions. It might even deepen them. Still, when she heard her daughter's laughter from down the hall, the sound gave her strength. The years of loss were over. Whatever trials came next, she would face them. Above the palace, the twin moons began to rise, casting silver light over the gardens and towers. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the galaxy carried its secrets and dangers. But in the heart of Lumeris, a human, a queen, and a lost princess had already begun to change the course of an empire. A week had passed since the memory crystal confirmed the truth. The capital of Lumeris had begun to celebrate the return of the lost princess. Streets were decorated with silver banners, and the people sang old songs that had not been heard in years. But inside the palace, not everyone shared in the joy. Daniel could feel it each day. The way some servants avoided meeting his eyes, the way certain nobles left the room when he entered. Only Seema seemed free of suspicion, and she followed him whenever she could, her presence a small comfort in the vast halls. One evening, Queen Ariala sent for Daniel. The guards led him through a narrow stairway to a high balcony room. The Queen stood there, looking out at the city as the twin moons cast pale light over the towers. There is something I must tell you, she began. Her voice was calm, but her hands rested tightly on the balcony rail. When I saw the memory crystal, I noticed something that no one else seemed to. The man who gave the raiders payment, the human with the gray hair. He was wearing a coat with a crest. I recognized it. Daniel listened closely. What crest? The mark of the House of Reinhard, she said. An old human trading family that once worked in the outer sectors. They were known for dealing with dangerous worlds, but also for their strange code of honor. Daniel's chest tightened. Reinhard was my grandfather's family name. Ariala turned to face him. Then it is certain. Your grandfather was there the day my daughter was taken. The question is why? Was he part of the raid or was he trying to save her? Daniel shook his head. He never spoke of it. My father told me only that he traded far from home and sometimes brought back stories too dangerous to share. But I do know this. He would never harm a child. If he was there, it was to help. The Queen studied him. I want to believe that. But understand, the court will use this connection against you. Selric will claim that the same blood that brought her here once brought her into danger. Daniel's jaw tightened. Then I will find the truth before he can twist it. If my grandfather saved her, there must be records, logs, old trade agreements, something. Ariala nodded slowly. There is one place where such records might be found. The Hall of Archives beneath the palace holds centuries of trade and travel documents. But access is guarded. Only with my permission will you be allowed inside. I will go, Daniel said firmly. The next morning, Daniel descended into the Hall of Archives. The air was cool and smelled faintly of dust and metal. Rows of crystal panels lined the walls, each storing layers of information. A quiet archivist guided him to the human trade section. Hours passed as Daniel searched. He scanned shipping logs, cargo records, and travel permits. At last, he found it. A report dated the same year Sima had been taken. The entry showed his grandfather's ship, the Morning Star, docking at a border station near the Zareen frontier. The record noted an unusual transaction, a large payment to unnamed parties, followed by the transport of an unregistered passenger of non-human origin to a safe world. Daniel felt his pulse quicken. The destination listed was a colony world long abandoned after a mining collapse. If his grandfather had taken Sima there, it meant he was hiding her from her captors. But something must have gone wrong for her to end up in the hands of scavengers. Again. He took the record to the Queen. When she read it, her eyes softened, though her expression remained serious. This proves he tried to protect her, but it also means someone else found her after he left. That is a trail we may yet follow. Before they could speak further, a messenger arrived, bowing low. Your Majesty, Advisor Selric requests your presence in the council hall. He claims to have urgent news regarding the human guest. Ariala's eyes narrowed. Of course he does, she murmured. She gestured for Daniel to follow. In the council hall, Selric stood before a group of nobles. His voice carried across the room. Your Majesty, I have received reports from our border watch. Raiders have been sighted moving toward our space. And who are these raiders? The same faction involved in the princess's abduction. They have learned of her return. And I fear they have learned that a human is here in the palace. Murmurs spread among the nobles. Selric continued, his gaze flicking toward Daniel. Is it not suspicious that the raiders appear so soon after his arrival? How convenient that they come now. Perhaps to finish what was started years ago. Daniel stepped forward. If they are coming, it is not because of me. It is because they lost something they think they can take again. And I will stand against them, here or anywhere. Selric smiled thinly. Brave words. But can we trust them? Ariala's voice cut through the tension. Enough. We will prepare for the raiders. And as for Daniel, I have seen proof of his family's role in saving my daughter. Until I say otherwise, he will remain under my protection. Selric bowed, but his eyes were cold. As you wish, Your Majesty. That night, Daniel sat in his quarters thinking of the raiders. He remembered the rough, armed figures he had seen on the asteroid station. If they were indeed the same group, then they would not stop until they had what they wanted. In her room, Sima sat on the edge of her bed, holding the pendant in her small hands. They will come for me, won't they? She asked when Daniel came to check on her. They might try, he said, but they won't take you, not while I'm here. She nodded, trusting his words. Far beyond the city, in the dark reaches of space, the raider fleet moved silently. Their leader, a scarred figure named Brask, sat in the command chair of his ship. The girl lives, he told his crew, and this time we will not leave without her. The sun had just begun to rise over the city of Lumeris, casting soft light across the towers and streets. In the Grand Hall of Justice, preparations were underway for a public hearing that had not been held in decades. Citizens of the capital, Nobles and palace officials gathered in the marble gallery, eager to witness a trial that would determine the fate of the human who had brought the lost princess back. Queen Ariala sat on the elevated throne, flanked by her closest advisors. Sima stood beside her, holding the queen's hand tightly. The girl's eyes were wide, curious, and fearful at the same time. Daniel entered the hall, his footsteps echoing on the polished floor. He carried himself with quiet confidence, though he could feel the judgmental eyes of the court upon him. The chief judge, an elder Zareen named Thalin, called the session to order. "We are gathered to hear the case concerning Daniel, human, of the outer sectors, who claims to have rescued Princess Sima and returned her to the palace. The court shall examine the evidence and hear witnesses. Let all speak truthfully and without fear." Selric, standing near the front, stepped forward. His eyes were sharp and calculating. "Your Majesty, this human claims to have acted out of kindness, but the timing and circumstances raise serious doubts. How can we be certain he did not have other motives?" Daniel lifted his head. "I have nothing to hide. My only purpose was to rescue the princess from danger. I risked my life for her, and I am willing to show every detail of my actions to anyone here." The first witnesses were guards who had accompanied Daniel and Sima from the dock. They described what they had seen. Daniel navigating the asteroid station, evading guards and bringing Sima safely aboard his ship. Their testimony was clear, yet some nobles muttered among themselves, questioning whether the human had exaggerated his deeds. Then the memory crystal's recordings were shown to the court again. The glowing images displayed Daniel's journey through the asteroid station, the scuffle with the guards, and the careful steps he took to protect the princess. The hall was silent as the council and citizens watched. Even the nobles who had doubted him looked uneasy. Selric, however, was not ready to give up. "Even if we accept that he rescued the princess, he has no knowledge of our laws, customs, or the responsibilities of our people. How can we trust him not to influence the queen or her daughter improperly? He is a stranger to this world." Daniel's eyes met the queen's. "Your Majesty, I respect your laws and your people. I am not here to take power or make decisions for you. I only want to ensure the safety of Sima and to help her adjust to life here. That is all." Sima stepped forward, surprising everyone. "I can speak for myself," she said, her small voice clear in the hall. "He saved me when I had no one. He risked his life. He did not lie. I know he is truthful. I want him here with me," the court murmured. Even the queen allowed herself a small smile at her daughter's courage. Selric's face tightened. "A child's words cannot decide matters of law and court. She is inexperienced and has been away from the palace for years. That does not give this human immunity from scrutiny." The chief judge raised a hand. "Order. We will continue with further questioning." Several nobles asked detailed questions about Daniel's methods. How did he travel so far without detection? Why did he choose to intervene? Could he have been working with raiders or enemies of the empire? Daniel answered each calmly, describing his grandfather's past actions, the dangers he had faced, and his determination to rescue Sima. As the questioning continued, it became clear to most in the hall that Daniel's intentions were pure. His honesty, his courage, and the evidence of the memory crystal left little room for doubt. But Selric was relentless. He shifted the conversation toward the political implications. If the princess remains under the influence of a human, what message does it send to our allies, to our enemies? We cannot allow foreign interference in our royal line. Ariala's voice rang with authority. "Selric, your words serve only to sow fear. Daniel has shown loyalty, honesty, and courage. He has no desire to interfere in politics. His presence does not diminish the authority of the crown. It strengthens it, for he acted when none else could." Selric bowed slightly, hiding his frustration. "As you command, Your Majesty. But I caution all present to remain vigilant. Appearances can be deceiving. The judge turned to the crowd. It is the ruling of the court that Daniel is not guilty of misconduct, deceit, or any action that endangers the princess or the realm. He is to be recognized as a guest of the crown and protector of Princess Sima, under the supervision of Queen Ariala. A cheer rose from the citizens in the gallery. Some nobles, though still wary, nodded in agreement. Selric's face remained impassive, but his mind was already plotting. After the hearing, Daniel escorted Sima back to the gardens. The girl ran ahead, laughing as she touched the flowers and examined the fountains. Her joy was unrestrained, and, for a moment, Daniel allowed himself to forget the politics and the looming dangers. "You were brave today," he said, watching her carefully. Sima looked back at him. "I was brave because you showed me how. I trust you." Daniel smiled. "Then we will face everything together." In the shadows of the palace corridors, Selric met with a small group of conspirators. "The queen may trust him, but the raiders are moving. Soon their arrival will test everything. If the human cannot protect the princess, the blame will fall squarely on him." One of the conspirators frowned. "Are you sure they are coming so soon?" Selric's eyes gleamed. "Yes, reports from the Border Watch confirm it. And when they come, it will give us the chance to prove that this human is not invincible. Then perhaps we can remove him from the palace permanently." Far above the city, the twin moons reflected in the black waters of the palace fountains. The morning seemed fragile, as if one wrong move could shatter it completely. Yet in the heart of the palace, a human and a Czarine girl walked together, their bond growing stronger with each step. That night, Sima slept with her pendant clutched in her hand. Daniel watched over her, thinking of the threats that might come. The raiders, her former captors, were moving closer every hour. The court, though convinced of his honesty, was not united in support, and Selric, relentless in his ambition, would not hesitate to use the chaos for his own advantage. The quiet palace held its breath. The future of the princess, the human who saved her, and the Czarine Empire itself depended on what would happen next. The city of Lumeris woke to an unusual alarm that echoed through the streets and towers. The twin suns had barely risen, yet palace sirens rang, signaling danger from the outer sectors. The raider fleet, long predicted by Selric, had arrived. Ships with dark hulls and jagged edges appeared above the city, moving in a formation that suggested careful planning. Queen Ariala stood on her balcony, Sima by her side. Daniel was immediately at her side, scanning the horizon with sharp eyes. The raiders were unlike anything the palace defense teams had faced before. They had waited years, and now they came with intent. "Their numbers are small," Daniel said, "but they are fast and ruthless. If they get close to the city's core, they could breach our defenses before we have time to respond." Ariala's face was calm, but inside, worry churned. "Then we must prepare. Send out the alerts to the fleet and ready the defensive shields. All palace personnel must be on alert." Daniel and the captain of the palace defense fleet, Commander Tarek, worked quickly to organize the city's response. Fighter ships scrambled into formation, while energy shields hummed along the city's perimeter. Citizens were guided to safe zones. Sima watched from the balcony, clutching her pendant tightly, her small face set with courage. The first skirmish began above the outer towers. Raider ships darted in, attempting to bypass the shields and strike at key palace installations. Czarine fighters met them head-on, weaving through the sky in swift maneuvers. Daniel, though not a trained pilot of the Empire, took control of a smaller interceptor craft to provide support. His instincts, honed from years traveling dangerous regions, guided him through the battle with precision. Sima stayed behind the balcony railings, watching her protector move through the air. She felt a strange mix of fear and pride. He was human, yet he moved with skill that rivaled the best Czarine pilots. On the ground, Selric's group observed the chaos with interest. He leaned over a tactical display. If the human fails, the queen will be forced to protect her daughter differently. Then we will have an opportunity. But Daniel's strategy was already in motion. He coordinated the fighter squads, predicting the raiders' movements and guiding ships to intercept before they could reach the city. His knowledge of human and alien tactics allowed him to exploit gaps in the raider formation. One by one, the enemy ships were forced back or destroyed. Despite their small numbers, the raiders were relentless. A single vessel broke through the shields near the eastern tower, targeting the palace gardens where Sima often played. Daniel noticed it immediately and took action. He flew directly toward the ship, weaving through the laser fire, and launched a calculated strike that disabled its engines without causing a full explosion. Sima gasped as she saw the ship fall into the river below the palace, sending sparks and smoke into the air. The garden was safe, and the people watching the battle cheered. Ariala's eyes met Daniel's as he returned to the balcony. "You risked much to save them," she said. "I will risk anything to keep her safe," Daniel replied, glancing at Sima. The raider leader, Brask, realized his fleet had underestimated the defenders. He ordered a retreat, planning to regroup and attack at a later time. The remaining ships pulled back toward the edge of the sector, disappearing into the dark space beyond. While the immediate threat had passed, Daniel knew it was only the beginning. The raiders would return, likely with more ships and more cunning plans. Inside the palace, the queen called an emergency council. "The raiders are defeated for now," she said, "but we must strengthen the defenses. Daniel, your tactics saved the city today. Your insight will be invaluable as we prepare for the next wave." Selric, though humiliated by the outcome, masked his frustration with a polite bow. "Your Majesty, the human has proven his skill, yet I caution that this is only a temporary victory. We must be ready for anything." Daniel nodded, understanding the weight of the warning. "We will be ready. I will help train the pilots and plan for every possible route the raiders might take." Sima walked up to him, her small hand brushing against his arm. "They will not take me again," she said firmly. "No," Daniel agreed. "Not while I am here." That evening, Daniel took a moment to examine the memory crystal chamber again. He wanted to ensure that no detail of the raiders' past movements had been missed. The crystal's faint glow illuminated the chamber as he studied the images. He traced the patterns of raider attacks, comparing them to the fleet's current positions. Every detail mattered. Ariala joined him silently. "You have done well," she said. "You have saved more than a life today. You have protected the Empire itself." Daniel shook his head slightly. "I did what I had to do, but this is far from over. The raiders will return, and next time, they may not be so careless." The queen looked down at her daughter, asleep, in her chamber. "Then we must teach her to be strong," she said. "And we must trust those who have proven themselves, even if they are not of our world." Daniel smiled faintly. "Then we will face them together, human and Zareen, side by side." Outside, the twin moons rose high above the city, reflecting off the towers and fountains. The battle had been won, but the skies of Lumeris were still dangerous. Somewhere in the galaxy, the raiders were regrouping, planning their next attack. And in the quiet corners of the palace, Selric's schemes were beginning to take shape, threatening to challenge the queen's trust in her new ally. The city had survived today, but the real test was yet to come. Daniel knew it. Sima knew it. And Queen Ariala, though proud and relieved, sensed that the coming days would demand courage beyond anything they had faced before. For now, they rested. But all three, the queen, the princess, and the human who had saved her, understood that their bond, forged in danger and loyalty, would be the key to surviving the trials yet to come. The city of Lumeris was tense. The victory against the raiders in the previous battle had been hard won, but it had come at a cost. Supplies were low, defensive shields had sustained minor damage, and the people, though resilient, were anxious. Above all, the threat remained. Brask and his fleet were still out there, planning their return. Queen Ariala convened her advisors in the war room, a high chamber filled with star maps and strategic panels. Daniel stood beside her, his mind focused and sharp. Seema, though still young, followed them, determined to understand what was happening and how she could help. "Reports indicate Brask is moving faster than anticipated," Commander Tarek said. "If he reaches the outer perimeter by tomorrow, he could break through the shields before reinforcements arrive." Daniel leaned over the star maps. "We need to anticipate his moves. The first attack was reckless, almost like a scouting mission. Now he knows our tactics. He will try to outsmart us, but we can predict his path if we look at the patterns he used before." Selric, seated at the side, did not hide his skepticism. "And what if your human intuition is wrong? The safety of the princess and the city cannot depend on guesswork." Ariala's voice was firm. "Enough, Selric. Daniel has saved my daughter once. He knows what to do. I trust him." The next hours were spent preparing. Fighter pilots trained tirelessly, shield systems were reinforced, and emergency evacuation routes were checked. Daniel guided the pilots personally, sharing strategies he had used in past skirmishes. He was patient, teaching them to anticipate attacks, to respond quickly, and to stay calm under pressure. Seema listened closely, absorbing every word. Though young, she had a natural instinct for strategy and movement, which Daniel encouraged. That night, the first warning came. Sensors detected multiple small ships moving at high speed through the outer sector. The raiders had returned, and, this time, they were determined. "Prepare for battle," Daniel said to the fleet, his voice steady. "We know their tactics. Stick to the plan. Protect the city and the princess at all costs." The sky above Lumeras lit up as the raiders approached. Their dark ships glinted under the twin moons, moving like shadows over the city towers. Zarine fighters scrambled into formation, guided by Daniel's precise commands. The battle began, in earnest. Raider ships darted and swerved, attempting to breach the city's shields. Energy beams fired back and forth, lighting the skies in bursts of blue and red. Daniel maneuvered his interceptor with skill, disabling raider ships while avoiding incoming fire. Seema watched from the balcony, her heart pounding. She had practiced what to do if raiders got through the shields, following Daniel's instructions carefully. When a smaller raider ship descended toward the gardens, she guided palace defense turrets to intercept, remembering exactly what Daniel had taught her. The ship was destroyed before it could land. Brask realized his fleet was in trouble. He ordered a bold maneuver, splitting his ships to attack multiple points at once. Daniel anticipated the move, coordinating the pilots to cover the gaps. One by one, the raider ships were neutralized or forced to retreat. In the middle of the chaos, Brask's flagship moved directly toward the palace, aiming to strike the throne tower. Daniel knew he could not allow it to reach the queen or Seema. He led a small team in a daring assault on the flagship, weaving between enemy fire and focusing all attacks on the central hull. Seema, though frightened, remained calm. She guided the palace defense drones from the balcony, her instructions precise. Together, Daniel and Seema coordinated the attack, a perfect combination of instinct, strategy, and courage. Finally, Daniel's interceptor struck the flagship's core, causing it to spin out of control. Brask's ship exploded in a controlled detonation, sending shards of metal tumbling into the void of space. The remaining raider ships, seeing their leader destroyed, retreated in disarray. The city of Lumeras was safe. Citizens poured into the streets, cheering and celebrating. Daniel returned to the palace, where Queen Ariala embraced Seema tightly. "You were brave," she said to her daughter. Seema looked up at Daniel. We did it together, she said, smiling. Ariala turned to Daniel, her eyes full of gratitude. You risked everything for my daughter. You have proven your loyalty, your courage, and your heart. I am forever in your debt. Daniel shook his head. I only did what anyone would do for someone in danger. But I am glad she is safe. That is all that matters. Selric, defeated in the council and the battle, bowed stiffly. Your Majesty, it seems the human has earned his place here. Ariala's voice was kind but firm. He is not here for a place. He is here because he has proven himself when it mattered most. Later, Daniel walked through the palace gardens with Seema. The twin moons reflected in the fountains and the flowers glowed softly in the evening light. The city was calm, the people safe, and the raiders had been driven away. You were amazing today, Seema said quietly. Daniel smiled. No one can do everything alone. You were amazing too. You stayed, calm, and helped guide the defense. That was very brave. Seema hugged him tightly. I am glad you are here. Daniel looked at the city around them, the towers standing tall against the night sky. He thought of the journey that had brought him here, the danger, the unknown, and the long path across the stars. It had all led to this moment, the safety of a princess, the trust of a queen, and the bond of friendship that could overcome even the darkest threats. Queen Ariala watched from a nearby balcony, her heart swelling. With pride, she had her daughter back. The human who had saved her was no longer a stranger, but a trusted ally and friend. And though the future would bring new challenges, she knew that together they could face anything. The city of Lumeris slept peacefully. That night, its towers and walls shining under the twin moons. For the first time in years, the queen felt that her daughter's return was not only a miracle, but a promise, that courage, loyalty, and the bond between human and Zareen could change the course of the galaxy. And somewhere in the stars beyond, the raiders would remember the courage of those who had defended Lumeris, knowing that the city, the princess, and the human who saved her would stand strong against any threat that came next. The adventure had ended, but the bond forged in danger would last forever, a testament to bravery, trust, and the enduring spirit of humanity and the Zareen people.